Okay, so last month I did a very gentle introduction to light painting and how to photograph engine bays. Today I'm moving the focus away from engine bays and how to photograph wheels, or more importantly, how to light them. Now I'm going to go through 5 different levels or stages on how to light your wheels properly, but this can be applied to anything, not just wheels. So I like to use this as an example on how to level up your lighting in general. But before we talk about lighting, we should cover a little bit about framing first. I like to shoot relatively wide and relatively close. It depends on what you're going for. For instance, if you're shooting a mainstream car, you might want to avoid distorting the wheel too much and shoot like 50mm or even more. If you're shooting JDM cars, modified or anything a bit more exciting, then it makes sense to go a bit low and go a bit wide for a more dynamic sense. But be really careful going too low because you don't want to make the wheel arches look too big and prominent. Otherwise you can get that four-wheel drive look. You can help offset that by darkening the wheel arches that you might see later in post. In this case, I'm shooting the wheels of a new Honda Civic Type R, and I'm shooting at 33mm with my 24-70 2.8 Canon lens adapted to my Sony A7R IV. So level 0, we start off with the base exposure with no supplemental lighting at all. Just natural light. Black gloss wheels are very, very unforgiving to photograph. If it was matte or lighter in color, it would soften the light and help hide the reflections naturally. Unfortunately, with black gloss, everything is visible, and that's what makes this an excellent example to go through with you. So level 1, the beginner. The easiest trick in the book that I use is to just simply hold a white foam board to reflect and bounce the light back onto the wheels using natural light. I've even used the back of an A4 sheet of paper before, which happened to be the back of a shooting brief from the client. It is so unbelievably simple yet effective. If you need to shoot fast and dirty, this will often yield better results than even complex flash setups. Notice how it immediately cleans the reflection on the Honda badge and the wheel nuts. I got this white signboard from Officeworks. It's just a couple of bucks and it's about the size of A1. But what I really like about it is that it's a nice size, yet it fits easily in my boot. So the nice thing about bigger boards is that it makes it easier to bounce and reflect light back onto the wheels without running the risk of being in the shot. The smaller the board is, the closer you have to have the board to the wheel in order to have the same amount of reflective power. However, when the board is too close to the wheel, you run the risk of it being in frame of the shot and blocking the lens. But be careful not to overdo it when it comes to the size of your board. The biggest doesn't necessarily mean the best. The bigger the reflector, the more soft the light's going to be. And when the light gets too soft, you reach a point where you lose contrast completely. Without contrast, the gloss black wheels in this instance will end up looking too milky. Level 2, the hobbyist. Once you reach the enthusiast level of photography, you'll tend to want to play with flashes. Here's what it looks like with just a bare flash and without diffusion. The harsher light has the advantage of making some textures like the brake disc pop up more, but it has a horrible effect on the gloss black spokes. But depending on the texture of the wheels you're shooting, a harsh flash might actually look really good. So don't write it off for every situation. Level 3, the enthusiast. Softer flash usually requires a little bit more work or maybe a little bit more gear because, for instance, you generally can't soften the light so easily with speed lights. You can of course do it with certain add-ons and you can bounce the light as well, but it's usually easier with a monolight or larger flashes in general. Remember, when you soften the flashlight, you lose power considerably. I'm using Broncolor Siros L 800 monolights with 800 watts of power. There is plenty of light. You can see this is starting to look better. We would want to hide some of the light in the wheel arch in post, but there's a nice balance of contrast and clean reflection on the rims. At this point, you should recognize that this is closer to the ideal formula for shooting glossy or reflective wheels. Level 4, the pro. Any serious car photographer is going to have to learn how to light paint, and light paint really well. I would say 90% of the time, basic light painting with an LED wand would yield the best results, but in this case with the black gloss rims, I think the softer look we had before was a bit better. Level 5, that is the mastery of light. If you shoot brochures for a living, I don't think you need this tutorial. But for those of you who think they're missing out on some big trade secrets, the next level is simply a combination of all of the above. This is a combination of a bit of bounce, light painting, and selective exposures combined. And that's what mastery of light is all about. Not being constrained to any one formula or technique, but being open to using any and all of them. For example, this R8 V10 wheel was shot using light painting, which, if you remember, was too harsh and didn't work so well on our Type R. Different wheels, different colors, different weather, and different angles all change what would make the optimum solution for that particular situation. The best lighting solution is always bespoke to the situation. What works really well in this instance isn't necessarily going to work as well in the next. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Mastery of lighting is to abandon the notion that you have to rely on any one formula or technique. So I hope you found this video really helpful. You can click here to watch my light painting video on engine bays, and next up I'm going to be doing a review of the Sigma Art 50mm 1.4 lens.